The diplomatic shuttle touched down on the landing pad of Kepler Station with a heavy metal sound. Captain Marcus Webb walked out with 6 people behind him. They all wore the blue uniforms of Earth Space Command. Marcus was tall, with gray hair and a hard face. He had been doing this job for 20 years, and every time felt the same. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He felt the weight of not knowing what would happen next. The alien ship sat in the landing bay like a dark metal monument. It was 3 times bigger than any human ship. The surface was smooth and black, and it had weapons on every side. Marcus could see the gun ports clearly. He did not like what he saw. "They are calling again," said Lisa Hammond, the communications officer. She stood next to Marcus, looking at the readings on her small device. "They want to meet. They say it is peaceful." Marcus nodded slowly. He had heard the signals from the Valorian ship for 3 months now. They kept appearing at the edge of human space. They kept asking to talk. Every human captain who met them said the same thing. These beings were dangerous, even if they said they were peaceful. There was something in the way they moved, in the way their ships behaved, that made human instincts scream warnings. "Tell them we are ready," Marcus said. He looked at his team. "Remember what we discussed. Stay calm. Do not make fast movements. Do not reach for weapons. Let them speak first." The door of the alien ship opened slowly. A ramp came down. Light spilled out from inside, making it hard to see what was coming. Then a figure emerged. Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. The creature was 7 feet tall. Its body was covered in black scales that looked like polished stone. It had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. Its eyes glowed bright yellow and burned with an intelligence that seemed almost painful to witness. It moved like water, like something that knew exactly what every part of its body was doing at every moment. It was, without question, the most dangerous thing Marcus had ever seen in his life. The creature walked forward slowly. Marcus could see the claws on its hands. Long, curved, sharp. This was an apex predator. This was a hunter built by nature or by design to kill things much larger than humans. "I am Kethis," the creature said. Its voice came from deep in its chest, a rumbling baritone that made the air vibrate. "I represent the Valorian Coalition. We come with a gift for humanity. We come with respect and with hope for friendship." Marcus forced himself to smile. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. "Welcome to Kepler Station. I am Captain Marcus Webb. We are honored to receive you. What is this gift you speak of?" Kethis moved one of his 4 arms, and something shifted in the shadows of the shuttle behind him. Another creature emerged. It was similar to Kethis, but smaller, and it was covered in scars. Deep scars that spoke of battles and survival. This creature had the same scale-covered body, the same 4 arms, the same glowing eyes. But this one moved differently. It moved like a weapon. It moved like a hunter that had killed many times and would kill many times again. "This is a Zarathian enforcer," Kethis said. "In our galaxy, these are the most feared creatures in the region. They are fast. They are strong. They are trained to fight and to protect. We have decided to give this enforcer to humanity. We give it to you as a symbol that we want to help you survive in a dangerous universe. Your military is young. Your technology is not yet as advanced as others. But with this enforcer, you will have something that can help you defend your worlds and your people." Marcus stared at the Zarathian enforcer. His security team had moved slightly closer to him, their hands near their weapons. This was the moment. This was the decision point. Marcus could reject the gift. He could refuse to take the creature. It would be the safe choice. But he also knew that the Valorian Coalition would remember a rejection. They would remember an insult. "This is a generous gift," Marcus said carefully. He chose every word with care. But before we can accept, I must ask a question. Is it friendly? There was a moment of silence. Kethis tilted his head, the four eyes studying Marcus with what might have been curiosity. Then a sound came from Kethis. It took Marcus a moment to understand that it was laughter. Friendly, Kethis said. This is an interesting question. The word means different things to different beings. The Zarathian enforcer is not programmed to be friendly. It is not programmed to like other creatures or to feel affection. But it is programmed to be loyal. It is programmed to obey. It is programmed to protect those it bonds with. One of your people must volunteer to bond with this creature. When the bonding is complete, the enforcer will follow that person. It will obey that person. It will protect that person with its life. This is its purpose. This is what it was made to do. And if no one bonds with it, asked Lisa Hammond. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the fear underneath. Then it will remain in a state of waiting, Kethis said. It will not attack. It will not try to escape. But it will not be what it was designed to be. It will not be useful. It will simply exist. This is not good for the creature. The creature needs a purpose. The creature needs a bond. Marcus nodded slowly. He looked at the Zarathian enforcer again. The creature stood still, its glowing eyes watching him without expression, without feeling. This was not a pet. This was not a companion in any normal sense. This was a weapon, a tool, a being designed only for killing. But it was also alive. Marcus could see that now. Under all the fear and the danger, under all the predatory instincts and the military training, there was something alive looking out from those glowing eyes. Something that wanted to be useful. Something that wanted to have a purpose. We will need time to decide, Marcus said. We will need to talk with our leaders. We will need to understand what we are taking on if we accept this gift. Of course, Kethis said. This is reasonable. We will remain on your station. We will wait for your answer. But I will tell you this, Captain Webb. The galaxy is not a safe place. There are others who see your species as weak. There are others who see your worlds as opportunities for conquest. With this enforcer at your side, you will be less weak. You will have a chance to survive what is coming. Kethis and the Zarathian enforcer walked back toward the shuttle. Marcus watched them go, and he felt the weight of the moment settle on him like a heavy coat. He had opened the door to something he did not fully understand. He had allowed something dangerous into human space. And the question that burned in his mind as he walked back to his shuttle was simple and terrifying. Had he made a terrible mistake? The Valorian Coalition wanted to give humanity a weapon. But weapons have ways of turning on those who wield them. Weapons have ways of changing everything they touch. Marcus Webb did not know it yet, but the decision he was about to make would change the course of human history. It would change the way humans saw themselves, and the way the rest of the galaxy saw humans. All because someone had asked a simple question. Is it friendly? Patricia Cross was not a warrior. She was a scientist. She was a linguist who spent her days analyzing languages and studying how different beings communicated with each other. She was 42 years old and had never fired a gun in her life. She had never been trained in combat. She had never been on a battlefield. Her entire career had been spent in laboratories and research stations, looking at patterns and trying to understand how minds worked across different species. So, when the emergency council meeting was held to discuss who would bond with the Zarathian enforcer, everyone was surprised when Patricia raised her hand. "I will do it," she said. Her voice was calm and quiet, but everyone in the room heard her. Admiral Houston stared at her. "Dr. Cross, I have great respect for your work, but you are not a warrior. This creature is a weapon. It was built to kill. It was built to fight. You cannot control something like this. With respect, Admiral, I do not think you understand what bonding means, Patricia said. The ambassador said the creature bonds based on will and trust. It bonds based on understanding between two beings. I can build trust. That is what I have spent my entire life doing. I can understand how other minds work. I can understand what this creature needs. I believe I can form a bond with it. Marcus Webb looked at Patricia carefully. He had known her for 3 years. She was brilliant, yes, but she was also fragile in the way that brilliant people sometimes were. She lived in her mind more than in the physical world. What would happen to someone like that when bonded to an apex predator? If you are certain, Marcus said finally, then we will allow this. The bonding took place in a sealed chamber deep below the station. The chamber was made of reinforced metal. There were emergency exits. There were weapons hidden in the walls if something went wrong. Patricia wore simple clothes. Nothing that would restrict her movement. Nothing that would make her seem like she was preparing for a fight. The Zarathian enforcer was brought in by Ambassador Kethis himself. The creature looked even larger in the confined space. Its shoulders were almost touching the walls. Its head nearly brushed the ceiling. In this small room, the creature seemed absolutely overwhelming. Patricia stood in the center of the chamber and did not move. She did not back away. She did not show fear, even though fear was moving through her body like electricity. I am Patricia Cross, she said. She spoke as if she were greeting another scientist at a conference. I know what you are. I know that you have been trained to fight. I know that you have been trained to kill. I know that you are dangerous. But I want to know something else. I want to know who you are underneath all of that training. I want to know what you want to be. The enforcer made a sound in its throat. It was a low rumble, something that seemed to come from the bottom of the earth. Patricia had no idea if this was aggression or curiosity. She had no training for this. She only had her instinct, and her instinct told her to stand still, to not move, to wait. The enforcer took one step forward, then another. It was not fast. It was deliberate. Patricia could see every muscle moving under the black scales. She could see the power that was contained in that body. If this creature wanted to kill her, she would be dead in seconds. There was no way to stop it. There was no defense. The creature raised one of its forearms and extended its clawed hand toward Patricia. It was close enough now that she could feel the heat radiating from its body. It was close enough that she could see herself reflected in its glowing yellow eyes. Slowly, Patricia raised her own hand and placed it against the creature's palm. The moment their skin touched, something shifted. Patricia felt it in her chest, like a door opening. The creature made another sound, this one different from the first. This one seemed to come from surprise or recognition or understanding. Patricia could not be sure what it meant. Ambassador Kethis watched from the corner of the chamber. The bonding is complete, he said. His name was Varath before the military training changed him. You may give him a new name if you wish, or you may restore his old identity. Patricia did not take her hand away from Vareth's palm. She looked up at the creature's face, at those strange glowing eyes, at the alien features that should have been terrifying, but somehow were not. Varath is perfect, she said. I will not change it. Over the next 3 weeks, Patricia and Varath were almost never apart. The station staff had been told to allow them access to any area they needed. Patricia brought Varath to the training chambers. She brought him to the observation decks. She brought him to the cafeteria and tried to teach him what human food was and how humans ate. Some of the food Varath ate. Some of it he ignored. He seemed to have a taste for protein, and he would eat raw meat if Patricia offered it. But he also seemed curious about everything. Even the foods he could not eat. Patricia spent hours simply sitting with Vorath in silence. She had learned that silence was important in cross-species communication. Sometimes words meant nothing. Sometimes what mattered was just the presence of another being. The knowledge that you were not alone. She talked to him about her life. She told him about growing up on Earth, about the oceans and the mountains and the sky. She told him about her parents, who had wanted her to be a doctor, but were happy when she became a scientist instead. She told him about why she had dedicated herself to understanding how other minds worked. Vorath listened. Whether he understood or not, Patricia could not be completely sure. But he listened. His glowing eyes would track her as she spoke. His body would remain still. He would give her his full attention. Patricia also began to understand Vorath's own communication. He had a series of sounds he made. Some were low rumbles that seemed to come from his chest. Some were sharp clicks that came from his throat. Some were high-pitched sounds that hurt her ears but seemed to mean something specific to him. She began to keep a record of these sounds. She began to track which sounds corresponded with which emotions or actions. She began to build a language with Vorath. Not a human language, not a Zarathian language, but something new, something that belonged to both of them. On the 21st day, something happened that changed the way the station saw Vorath forever. A child had gotten lost in the lower corridors. Her name was Emma, and she was 4 years old. She had separated from her mother in the crowd near the supply station. The station had gone into lockdown, and search teams had been sent to find her, but it was Vorath who found her. Patricia heard him make a specific sound, a pattern of low rumbles that she had come to recognize as something like urgency mixed with protection. She followed him through the corridors of the station. They moved deeper into the station, into areas that were less used and less populated. And then they found Emma in a small maintenance room, crying and afraid. Vorath made a different sound, a softer sound. He walked slowly toward the child and lowered his massive body down until he was closer to her size. His great scaled head tilted slightly, and he looked at the small human child with those glowing yellow eyes. Emma stopped crying. She looked at this creature that should have terrified her, and somehow she was not afraid. Vorath curled up next to her, wrapping his body around her in a protective position. His heat kept her warm. His presence kept her from being alone. Patricia watched as the search teams arrived and found the child safe with an alien apex predator. She waited to see fear. She waited to see violence. She waited to see the worst. Instead, when Emma's mother arrived and saw her daughter with Vorath, she did not scream. She did not try to grab her child. Instead, she looked at the creature that had protected her daughter, and she said thank you. From that moment on, Vorath was no longer seen as a weapon. He was seen as a guardian. He was seen as something more than his biology suggested. He was seen as a choice, a being who could have caused harm but instead chose protection. And Patricia understood that the bonding had been successful in a way that neither she nor Ambassador Kethis could have predicted. They had not created a tool. They had created a relationship. They had created a partnership between two beings from completely different worlds. The alarms came without warning. One moment the station was quiet, with people going about their daily work. The next moment, everything was chaos and fire and death. The Krell ships appeared on the detection screens like ghosts made of burning metal. There were 4 capital ships and 12 fighters. They came fast and hard, and they came with weapons that humanity did not have. Captain Marcus Webb was in the command center when the first explosion hit. The station shook violently. Red emergency lights came on automatically. Around him, his officers were shouting, trying to do their jobs in the middle of disaster. "We have hull breaches in sections 7 and 8, shouted Lisa Hammond, her fingers moving across her console. "The outer docking bays are gone." Multiple casualties reported in the agricultural sector. How many? Marcus asked. His voice was steady, but his hands wanted to shake. Initial estimates suggest 3,000, maybe 4,000, Lisa said. She did not look at him when she said it. She could not look at him. Marcus felt the weight of those numbers crush down on him. 3,000 people, 4,000 people, families, children, scientists and workers, and people who had done nothing to deserve this fate. Get evacuation teams to those sections, he ordered. But he knew it was probably too late. The Krell were already moving to cut off escape routes, already positioning themselves to maximize casualties. The Krell were not known for mercy. The Krell were known for being efficient. Admiral Houston's voice crackled through the communication system. Captain, we are engaging the Krell fighters, but we are badly outgunned. They have weapon systems that are outpacing our defensive grids. I estimate we can hold for maybe 10 minutes. After that, they will have complete control of space around the station. How many people can we evacuate in 10 minutes? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Maybe 500 if we are very lucky, Houston said. There are 5,000 people on this station, Captain. We cannot save them all. Marcus felt the weight of command settle on him like a physical thing. He was looking at the potential death of 4,500 people. And there was nothing in all of his training, nothing in all of his experience, that told him what to do in this moment. Then Patricia's voice came through on his private communication channel. Marcus, we are coming up to the main junction. Vorath and I have something to show you. Patricia, get to the evacuation pods immediately, Marcus said. That is an order. Get to safety. I am not part of your chain of command, Marcus, Patricia said. And I think you are about to see why the Valorian brought Vorath here. Patricia stood in the corridor with Vorath beside her. The walls around them were shaking. Dust was falling from the ceiling. The sounds of explosions echoed through the metal corridors of the station. Around them, other people were running, trying to get to the evacuation pods or to the safe zones. But Patricia was calm. Vorath was calm. And that was what mattered in this moment. One of the Krell boarding parties was moving through this section of the station. They had cut through the security doors with plasma weapons. They were moving methodically, killing anyone they found, securing the section. They were professionals. They were efficient. They were a military force that expected no resistance. When they came around the corner, they found Patricia and Vorath waiting. The Krell were shorter than Vorath, but broader and heavier. They were covered in natural armor that had been enhanced with combat modifications. They had 4 legs and 2 arms, each arm ending in claws that were designed to tear and rend. Their eyes were compound, giving them 360-degree vision. They were designed to be perfect killers in close combat. There were 4 of them. What happened next occurred in less than 3 seconds. Vorath did not hesitate. He did not show fear. He did not try to run or escape. He simply moved. His speed was impossible. His movements were perfect. One Krell soldier tried to raise his weapon, but Vorath was already there, his claws moving in a precise motion that disarmed the creature without killing it. The weapon fell to the ground. Another Krell tried to move forward, but Vorath struck it not with his killing strike, but with a controlled blow that sent the creature flying backward into the wall. The Krell soldiers began to retreat. They were trained killers. They were experienced in combat. But they had never faced anything like Vorath. They had never faced an apex predator that had speed and strength and intelligence working in perfect coordination. Patricia ran with Vorath as he pursued the Krell soldiers back toward the docking bay where they had entered the station. She was a small human woman running alongside a scaled alien predator that weighed 4 times what a human weighed. Her heart was hammering in her chest. Her breath came in sharp gasps. But she followed Vorath because she understood what he was doing. She understood his purpose in this moment. Through the station's camera feeds, Marcus watched as one of humanity's assigned gift weapons cut through the Krell boarding parties with controlled brutality. Vorath moved like water and fire combined. Every movement had a purpose. Every strike had precision. He was not just an animal reacting to danger. He was a tactical fighter making strategic decisions. He was identifying the threats and neutralizing them with the minimum force necessary. All Krell boarding parties in the main junction are retreating, Lisa Hammond announced. Disbelief was clear in her voice. The Enforcer is pushing them back. The Enforcer is actually winning. But Vorath did not stop at the docking bay. He continued forward, and Patricia understood why. The Krell boarding party could retreat to their ship and land again somewhere else. The threat would continue. They needed to be removed completely from the station. The Krell docking ship was large, designed to carry combat troops and supplies. It was heavily armored and heavily armed. As Vorath reached it, Patricia thought he would simply board it and try to clear the interior. That was what she expected. What he did instead was something that would later become legend in the history of Kepler Station. Vorath grabbed the external landing gear of the ship with two of his hands while gripping the hull with his other two hands. The landing gear began to bend. The metal screamed as it was twisted and torn. The ship listed to one side as the gear failed completely. Structural alarms began to sound inside the Krell vessel. The Krell pilots understood that they could not take off safely. Their ship was damaged. Their boarding party was failing to secure the station. Their mission had turned into a disaster. They made the decision to disengage and pull back. The ship rose on damaged emergency thrusters, its hull breach creating a trail of atmosphere and fire as it limped back toward the Krell capital ship. The crew they had left behind on the station would have to be abandoned. The operation was over. Patricia stood with Vorath in the wreckage of the docking bay. Her clothes were torn. Her hands were bleeding from small cuts. But she was alive. Vorath was alive. And more importantly, the station was alive. Around them, the battle continued in space. But the Krell ships began to break off their assault. They began to retreat. One by one, they disengaged from the station and began to move away from the system. The station-wide address system came alive with Lisa Hammond's voice. All Krell vessels are pulling back. All hostile ships are leaving the system. The attack has been repelled. Repeat, the attack has been repelled. The station erupted into sound. It was not quite cheers, not yet. It was the sound of people understanding that they had survived. That death had come and passed them by. That they would live to see another day. Patricia placed her hand on Vorath's shoulder. His scales were hot. His body was still in a state of high readiness, still prepared for more combat. But when he felt her hand, something in him relaxed. His breathing slowed. His muscles eased slightly. Patricia looked into his glowing yellow eyes and saw something that she had not expected to see. She saw relief. She saw the understanding that the danger had passed. She saw something that might have been contentment, or at least the satisfaction of having protected someone you cared about. "You were amazing," she whispered. And whether Vorath understood her words or simply understood her meaning from the tone of her voice, he made that soft rumbling sound that Patricia had come to associate with peace. The celebration lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The people of Kepler Station had faced the possibility of complete destruction, and they had survived. More than that, they had survived because an alien creature from a different world had chosen to protect them. The story spread across the communication networks of human space like fire. The Krell, one of the most feared species in the galaxy, had attacked a human station and had been driven back by a single Zorathian enforcer bonded to a human scientist. News networks demanded answers. The scientific community wanted to study Vorath. The military wanted to recruit him for other operations. Political leaders wanted to use his existence as leverage in negotiations with alien species. Everyone wanted something from the creature that had saved them. Patricia stood in the main corridor of Kepler Station and watched as people stopped her to thank her. They wanted to touch Vorath. They wanted to see the creature that had killed Krell soldiers and torn apart their ship. In 3 days, Vorath had transformed from a weapon to a symbol. But Patricia understood something that most people did not understand. Vorath was not interested in being a symbol. Vorath was interested in being what he was. He was interested in being bonded to Patricia and doing the work that they did together. 3 days after the battle ended, an emergency council meeting was called. All of the major leaders of the station were present. Admiral Houston was there. Captain Marcus Webb was there. The station commander, Colonel James Davis, was there. Scientists, military officers, and political officials filled the room. Patricia and Vorath sat in the back, watching. "We need to determine what to do with the Enforcer," Colonel Davis said. His voice was firm and professional. "The military is requesting that Dr. Cross allow us to use Vorath for training purposes. We want to understand his capabilities better. We want to develop strategies that use his strengths effectively in future combat situations." Patricia stood up. "Vorath is not a piece of equipment," she said clearly. "He is a sentient being. He is an individual. He bonded with me by choice, not because he was forced into it. To use him as nothing more than a training tool would violate the trust he has placed in me." Admiral Houston leaned forward. "Dr. Cross, I understand your position, but we cannot ignore the reality of the galaxy. The Krell are not the only threat out there. There are other species that see humanity as weak. There are other species that see our worlds as places they can take. If Vorath is truly as powerful as the battle demonstrated, then it is foolish not to use that power to protect human space. I am not arguing that we should not use Vorath to protect human space," Patricia said. Her voice was calm but firm. "I am arguing that we should not reduce him to only that purpose. He is more than a weapon. He has proven that. He protected a child in the station before the battle. He made the choice to care about someone other than his bonded partner. That shows intelligence. That shows capacity for compassion. That shows growth beyond his original programming." Marcus Webb had been listening quietly. Now he spoke. "Dr. Cross is right," he said. "We brought the Zorathian Enforcer here expecting a weapon. What we got instead was something more valuable. We got proof that beings from different worlds can coexist. We got proof that trust and understanding can exist even between species that should be enemies. The real question we need to ask is not how to use Vorath most effectively in combat. The real question is what Vorath wants to become." Patricia looked at Marcus with gratitude. She understood that he was taking a risk. The military was powerful. The military wanted weapons. The military had the ability to make life difficult for anyone who opposed them. "I propose," Patricia said, "that we allow Vorath and myself to continue our work. I will continue to study his communication, his psychology, his culture. We will share everything we learn with human scientists and researchers. In exchange, Vorath will remain available to defend this station and any human worlds that face serious threats. But he will not be treated as property. He will not be subjected to torture or dissection or any other form of abuse. He will be treated as what he is, a partner, an individual." The council debated for hours. Some wanted the military to simply take Vorath and force him to comply with their demands. Some understood that forcing Vorath would be both immoral and dangerous. A creature that powerful could not be held against its will. If Vorath turned hostile, the station would be destroyed in minutes. Finally, a vote was called. The decision was made to allow Patricia to continue her work with Vorath. The military would have access to his abilities for defense purposes. But Vorath would not be subjected to training or modification. Over the next months, Patricia and Vorath developed a research program that studied cross-species communication and bonding. Scientists from human worlds came to Kepler Station to learn from Patricia's work. They came to study Vorath. They came to understand what was possible when beings from different worlds could meet not as conquerors or conquered, but as partners. Patricia began writing detailed descriptions of Zorathian biology. She documented their communication systems. She explained how they thought, how they felt, how they understood the world. She shared everything she learned with the human scientific community. More Zorathians began to arrive at Kepler Station. Some came as researchers. Some came as teachers. They were not enforcers. They were not warriors. They were scholars and scientists, just like Patricia. The station transformed from a military outpost into a center of learning and cooperation. The Valorian Coalition began to see humanity differently. They began to see that humans had unique gifts. Humans had creativity. Humans had the ability to see beyond the surface of things. Humans had the capacity to choose compassion, even when the situation demanded selfishness. Vorath, in his own quiet way, became an ambassador. He did not speak at meetings or give speeches. He simply moved through the station, going about his day, showing through his actions what was possible. He played with the station's children, running and jumping in a way that was carefully controlled so that his massive weight and incredible strength did not cause harm. He helped rescue miners who were trapped in cave-ins on the mining colonies that orbited the station. He worked with Patricia in her laboratory, sitting patiently while she made measurements and took notes. People on the station began to call him the Guardian. Children who had never known fear in the presence of an alien predator would grow up believing that trust between different species was not only possible, but normal. They would grow up believing that the most dangerous beings were not monsters, but just different. One evening, Patricia and Vorath stood together in the observation dome, looking out at the stars. Patricia placed her small human hand on Vorath's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his scales and the power of his muscles beneath the surface. "Do you know what the question was?" Patricia asked him. "The question that started all of this?" Vorath made a low rumbling sound. Patricia had learned that this sound meant contentment, but also understanding. "They asked if you were friendly," Patricia said. "And for the longest time, I did not know how to answer that question. But now I think I understand. Friendly is not the right word for what you are. You are not friendly in the way that other creatures are friendly. You are not soft or gentle or kind in the traditional sense. But you are something better than friendly. You are loyal. You are protective. You are willing to make difficult choices for the sake of those you care about. That is better than friendly. That is real." Vorath turned his head and looked at Patricia, his glowing yellow eyes reflecting the light of the stars. He made another sound, a complex pattern of rumbles and clicks that Patricia had never heard before. She did not understand the sound, but she understood the meaning. She understood that Vorath was saying something important, something that mattered deeply. Patricia smiled and squeezed Vorath's shoulder gently. "I know," she said. "I feel the same way." 6 months after the Krell attack, Ambassador Kethis requested a private meeting with Patricia in the observation dome. Patricia walked with Vorath through the corridors of Kepler Station toward the observation area. They had become used to the way people looked at them when they passed. Some people were afraid. Some people were grateful. Some people simply watched in fascination, trying to understand the relationship between the small human woman and the massive alien predator. The observation dome was empty. When they arrived, Ambassador Kethis was already there, his forearms folded in a pattern that Patricia had learned meant peaceful intention. His glowing eyes fixed on Patricia as she approached. Dr. Cross, Kethis said. Thank you for coming. I wanted to speak with you privately about what has happened here on Kepler Station. It is important that you understand the significance of your work with Vorath. Patricia nodded and stood beside Vorath, her hand resting on his forearm. What do you mean, Ambassador? When the Valorian Coalition decided to give Vorath to humanity, we had a specific goal in mind, Kethis said. We believed that your species was capable of great things, but we also knew that humanity faced many dangers. There are forces in this galaxy that see younger species as things to be used or destroyed. We brought Vorath as a symbol of protection. We brought him as a tool that would give humanity the chance to prove themselves capable of survival. Kethis paused, and his eyes seemed to glow more brightly. But what we did not anticipate is what you would do with that tool. We did not anticipate that you would see Vorath as something more than a weapon. We did not anticipate that you would teach him to be something beyond what his creators intended. We did not anticipate that you would choose compassion when you had every reason to choose only power. What does this mean? Patricia asked. It means, Kethis said, that humanity has proven something important. You have proven that your species has the capacity to see beyond the surface. You have proven that you can form bonds with beings that should be your enemies. You have proven that strength does not require cruelty. This is something remarkable. This is something that will change how the galaxy sees your people. Over the years that followed, Kepler Station became known throughout human space and beyond as a place where something remarkable was happening. Patricia continued her work with Vorath, publishing detailed research on cross-species bonding and communication. Universities on Earth began to teach her theories. Her work became the foundation for new approaches to diplomacy and understanding between human and alien species. Vorath traveled to other human worlds, not as a weapon or a tool, but as an ambassador in his own right. He visited mining colonies and farming settlements. He met with leaders of human governments. He showed, simply through his presence and his actions, what was possible when beings from different worlds could meet with open minds and open hearts. Other Zarathians came to study at Kepler Station. Some were scientists. Some were philosophers. Some were younger Zarathians who had been raised only knowing violence and were learning for the first time what peace could mean. Patricia trained them, just as she had trained Vorath. She taught them that intelligence and power could exist. Alongside mercy and understanding, the scientific discoveries that came from Patricia and Vorath's work were groundbreaking. They discovered that Zarathian communication was far more complex than anyone had realized. They discovered that Zarathians were capable of art and music and creative expression. They discovered that beneath the predatory instincts and the military conditioning, there was a species with rich emotional lives and deep desires for connection. News of this work spread through human space and beyond. The Valorian Coalition was impressed with what humanity had accomplished. But more importantly, other species in the galaxy began to see humanity differently. They began to see humans not as a young, weak species that could be easily dominated, but as a species with unique capabilities. Humans had the ability to see the best in others, even when others were designed to be predators. 10 years after the Krell attack, Patricia stood in a large auditorium on Earth, speaking to an audience of thousands. Scientists and leaders and ordinary people had come to hear her speak about her work with Vorath. Vorath stood on a stage beside her, a massive figure covered in black scales, his glowing yellow eyes watching the crowd. When we first encountered Vorath, Patricia said, her voice carrying through the auditorium, we did not know what he was or what he could become. We only knew that he was dangerous. We only knew that he had been trained to kill. But one thing I have learned in my work is that danger and potential are not the same thing. Danger is what something can do. Potential is what something might choose to become. Patricia placed her hand on Vorath's shoulder. Vorath was given to humanity as a weapon. But Vorath chose to become something more. He chose to protect. He chose to care. He chose to learn and to grow beyond what he was designed to be. That choice, that simple human concept of choosing who you want to become, is something that we gave him. Not through violence or force, but through understanding and respect and the willingness to see him as something more than the sum of his biology. The auditorium erupted in applause. Patricia could see people crying. She could see people looking at Vorath with wonder and awe. She could see that the message was reaching people. The message that beings from different worlds could coexist. That understanding could bridge almost any gap. That the choice to be better than your biology dictates was always available to you. After the presentation, Patricia and Vorath walked through the gardens of Earth. It was Patricia's first time on Earth, since she had left it 20 years before for her research work. The gardens were beautiful, with plants and trees and flowers that she had forgotten existed. Vorath walked carefully through the narrow paths, his massive body moving with precision so that he did not damage anything. They came to a small pond in the center of the gardens. Patricia sat on a bench beside the water, and Vorath stretched out beside her, his great body creating a shadow across the grass. They sat in silence as they had learned to do so many times before. "Do you remember," Patricia said, "when they asked if you were friendly? When that was the question that mattered most in the world?" Vorath made a sound, the sound that Patricia knew meant yes. "I think the answer was always more complicated than that," Patricia said. "Friendly is what children are. Friendly is what pets are. But you are neither of those things. You are something unique. You are a being who could have been a predator without mercy. You could have been exactly what they designed you to be. But instead, you chose to be something that the world did not know it needed. You chose to be a bridge between worlds." Vorath shifted his position, and his great head came close to Patricia's face. He made a series of sounds, a complex pattern that Patricia recognized as one of his important communications. She did not know the exact translation, but she understood the meaning. He was expressing something deep and important. He was expressing gratitude and affection, and the knowledge that their bond had changed both of them. Patricia reached up and touched Vorath's face, feeling the warmth of his scales beneath her hand. Tears were running down her face, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of joy and understanding, and the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing that you have made the right choice, that you have built something beautiful with your own hands and heart dot around them. Earth continued its rotation. In space, Kepler Station continued its orbit, serving as a beacon of hope and understanding for countless beings from countless worlds. And in a garden on the home world of humanity, a small human woman and a massive alien predator sat together in peace. Proof that the galaxy was larger and more filled with possibility than anyone had ever imagined. The question that had started everything, the simple question of whether the creature was friendly, had been answered in a way that no one could have predicted. The answer was not yes or no. The answer was something deeper and more true. The answer was that Vorath, through the power of choice and understanding and the willingness to see beyond biology, had become something that the world did not know it needed. He had become proof that kindness could coexist with power. That strength did not require dominance. That the most dangerous beings were capable of becoming the most protective ones if given the chance to choose who they wanted to be. And that, Patricia thought, was the real gift that the Valorian Coalition had given to humanity. Not a weapon, not a tool, but the knowledge that transformation was possible. That understanding could bridge any gap. That the choice to be better than your biology dictates was always available to you if you were brave enough to take it.